Hi, Internet. It's Emily SW.
Sam,
That's the script that I remember.
make sure to give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Join us on Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and YouTube for more of the strange, obscure, and bygone.
Ooh, so nice.
Yeah.
We read The Circus of Dr. Lau. Or,
Yeah,
we can get straight into it.
okay.
I was like, oh, should we small talks first? I'm
Oh,
sure
well,
we'll.
I mean, I could. I keep yawning. I'm having one of those days where I really just want to sit into a really cushy armchair with 5 blankets and a cup of hot tea, and I don't know, maybe we have something on the TV. Like a really cozy kind of.
Hmm.
That's the vibe I feel right now.
Yeah, it's a good night for it. I was pretty cozy on the couch doing my reading today.
Mm-hmm.
And London was napping with me for a while. It was very picturesque until she woke up and decided it was time for violence.
Oh, yeah, I was trying to wrestle a glass of water away from the cat that's here, and I ended up just dumping it all over the place.
Oh no.
So that was a thing that happened today.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't have any such mishap, but she did knock over a vase. It
Hmm.
didn't break, luckily, but
Just cat things.
yeah, just cat things. She also so I was at that conference Tuesday, and I ended up with a couple stress balls from like the free stuff that people give away. And London highly enjoys chasing it around. Very dog-like. No fetch.
No, that's the thing. You can, toss the toy and they'll chase after it. But a lot of cats, I have had cats who will bring the toy back to you. But not every cat will do that the way a dog does. But then the cat will still turn to you and expect you to throw it again.
Oh yeah, they expect you to get up.
But it's like, I don't have, infinite toy mice here that I can keep tossing.
Well, in a cat's mind, that's just a personal failing on your part.
But some cats will fetch, but not, I don't think, the majority of them.
Although London will, if she's in the mood and you're dangling a toy, she will walk around on her hind legs like a circus cat.
That's pretty funny.
Or she'll if she needs to poke her head up, I call it meerkatting. She'll sit up like a meerkat does when they hear something suspicious. It's so cute. She's got her little paws.
Mm-hmm. I guess now we'll get into it.
Yeah, we can get into it now. We've sufficiently small
Yeah.
talked.
So this is, I think, the last circus carnival traveling show themed story we have for the year.
I think it's a fitting way to close it out.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was a very circusy circus. And that sounds kind of stupid and obvious, but to me it captured the strange idea of a circus, or I guess the emotions that the circus is supposed to elicit, of being bewildered, and I don't really know what's going on, but I think I'm enjoying it. So I think it accomplished very successfully capturing that essence of a circus.
Okay, so the story was The
Oh,
Circus of Dr. Lau.
by Charles Finney. G. Finney, sorry,
Yes.
Charles G. Finney.
Yes, and this was published in 1935.
Yeah, and it's definitely of the times. Like it's set in the Great Depression as well as having been published then. Or I guess they
Yeah,
don't specifically say it's the Depression, but they do mention people being out of work, and it's after World War One.
it was definitely a contemporary test setting.
Yeah. And so were there illustrations in the copy that you read?
Yes.
Because I noticed, so we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but I was reading this on the Internet Archive, and there's also a copy in the Library of Congress website that is just literally scans of a physical book. And the illustrations for all the editions that I saw when I was poking around are very interesting. Like
Yep.
the one on the Library of Congress website, I guess, like, it's almost like the opening scene of the book is the parade of the circus going through this town and everyone's reactions to it.
Mhm.
And in the book on the Library of Congress website, it has pictures of each of the parts of the parade interspersed in the text as it jumps between perspectives, which I thought
Oh,
was
mine
kinda
didn't
cool.
have that.
Yeah, the one I ended up reading it on Kindle, and that one didn't have those illustrations, but
Mine had
I just
different
thought it was
illustrations.
cool. Yeah, mine the copy on Kindle has, like they're, like, black and white, sort of really stylized sketches, in a very I don't even know what the style is. It almost reminds me of, like, the '70s,
It's
but
it's very surreal.
yes, yes, very surreal art style.
Which goes along with the text because this whole story, and I had said, remember I said this to you before. I think this is going to be a trip, and not necessarily in a good way. In a more well, I think I also said it might be a trip in a bit of a psychedelic way.
Yeah, it definitely it wasn't a trip in a bad way, by any means, or at least
No,
I
but
didn't
it
think it
is
was.
this is probably I think one of the strangest things we've read so far.
Yeah, and honestly, I was very happy it was not depressing, like some of the things we've read so far.
Oh, no, yeah. It was also very short, which I think it would have to be because there's not really a plot.
No, it really is sort of just, "Here's the circus. Here are some observations and musings on life and humanity and philosophy. Okay, goodbye."
The opening scenes, because it starts off with a proofreader at a newspaper. Charles Finney worked for a newspaper. He also lived in Arizona, and the story takes place in a town called Abilene, Arizona, which I believe is fictional. He made it up. But he was from Arizona, and he did work for a newspaper. So the book starts with the proofreader, and he's looking at this enormous. I think they said it was what, 8 by. They gave the exact measurements of the ad.
Okay, it was 8 columns wide and 21 inches long.
Well, that must be a full page.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
And it's describing all of these. Well, it's describing all the attractions that the circus supposedly has to offer. And some of them sound a little far fetched.
Oh, yeah. Even more so than, I think, actual circuses or freak shows. Because, I mean, we know as a modern audience that most of those types of things were faked or exaggerated, or it's sleight of hand.
Funny part about this was, and this reminded me a lot of when we read And All the Earth the Grave, where people
Mhm.
just don't question things. Because the proofreader says to the, and what they call them, advertising solicitors,
Oh, yeah.
took the order for the ad, and he says, "Don't you think it's a little strange that it doesn't say like whose circus it is or what circus it is that's coming?" And the advertising guy just says, "Well, they paid for it." And so they ask the manager, and the manager basically says, "We have the money, so who cares?"
Yeah, it really I think that also kinda gives well, let me rephrase that sentence. The fact that it's was written or published during the Depression and is set during the Depression, I think adds a lot of context to people's reactions to the circus too, in terms of, "Oh, you gotta pay a nickel or 10 cents," or whatever it is. I think it was a dime. And that's to a small town full of struggling people, that's a lot of money, but they all paid it.
And I think the fact that this is a small town kind of crucial to what the story's trying to say. The fact that these people are kind of like isolated and they've never really seen outside of their town is, I think, the crux of the story.
Oh, absolutely. And to add on to that, I think the fact that these people have never ventured outside of their small towns and never will, that comes up for most, if not all of them. No, it's most of them. Some of them do end up going elsewhere. Is the fact that they're very set in these preconceived notions of what is and what isn't. And
Yes.
despite the fact that they have very little experience of the world and different people and different things.
So the circus comes to town, and it's advertised as a parade. You have to remember, this is also very satirical.
Oh, extremely.
When you're imagining a circus parade, you're probably thinking like, something really kind of grand where they probably have the elephants and, the caged animals at the time, but the performers and probably the clowns and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, like a band.
Yeah, especially, calliope on a carriage. This parade consists of 3 carts only, just 3. Each of them are being pulled by a different animal, and inside the cage that's on the cart are all something completely different, and the people driving the cart are also very different, and none of them are clowns or anything you would associate with a circus. And the first cart in the parade leading the way is Dr. Lau, and his cart is being pulled by a unicorn.
Which is immediately a subject of hot debate among our introduction to the townspeople, because we get everyone's different reactions as our cast of characters.
Yes.
And it's very amusing, or it was very amusing to read how some of them were describing unicorns. It's like, what is that? Oh, it's a unicorn. What the hell is that? The confidence of I think it's one of the policemen who says to his friends, "Oh, that's a unicorn. They're native down in wherever, in like some country." And the other guy's like, "Oh yeah, I think I heard about that."
But obviously they have no idea because they've never left Abalone, Arizona. Isn't abalone like a seafood?
Yeah, so abalone, I was also thinking about that as I was reading it. So they're technically snails, but abalone shells, like the outside, are the really kind of rough looking, like plain gray brown. And then on the inside, they have that pearly sheen to them. So so I guess you can't eat an abalone, but I more so think of the shells than the actual living thing inside of it.
See, I was just kind of thinking about how ironic that is, that it's a sea creature and Arizona is famous for being, desert.
Yeah, there's also, I think that's kind of also a theme in the book, is the water. Like a lot of the creatures are either found near the water or are native to water in some way. And so they're brought inland to this place that is landlocked, which is just adds to the symbolism there.
Yeah, you also have now these sea creatures who are just as, I guess, out of their element as all the townspeople coming to see them.
Yeah, that's true. We have a sphinx.
Oh yeah.
That's who's also pulling one of the carts in the parade. And we have a golden mule, a golden ass.
And there's a lot of debate in the townspeople too about whether or not these things are real or if just like they're fake, like we discussed, is some kind of sleight of hand or trick.
Yes, and there is one very contentious sort of carriage that contains either a bear or a man or a Russian.
Funniest part.
Yeah, it's the best. That honestly, I was like, I wonder if this is some sort of like 1930s Russian like like joke or something, because it kept coming up. It was literally a joke throughout the entire story.
Maybe these people or it feeds into the fact these people are so isolated, like they can't even tell a bear from a Russian. And I'm sure there's some stereotypes about Russian people that's getting played along in here too.
Yeah, or like they're so isolated that they think a Russian would be so different from them that it could resemble a bear.
I mean, Russians fighting bears is kind of a stereotype.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a cold climate. They probably wear a lot of fur. It might look like a bear from a distance. And, typically Russian men have beards, stylistically.
Yeah, that's the stereotype anyway.
Yeah, it's a stereotype. I mean, who knows? It could also just be... This story kind of read to me like the author was just... He had some sort of interaction with too many idiots, and he's like, I gotta get this out. I will say, though, and this might be my bias as someone who has proofread in a newspaper setting, I should say. But my favorite sort of scene in the circus itself was with the proofreader and the sea serpent. Like the way it switched from normal sort of story format to suddenly just being like play dialogue of just...
Yeah, it's written like an interview.
Yeah. It's just It's
But
so funny to me.
that's also what happened because the proofreader is kind of in his head, imagining that he's, doing a scoop and he's interviewing the sea serpent.
Yeah, the story I do enjoy a good fourth wall break or in a story that kind of winks at the reader, so to speak. And there's a couple times where that happened. But that was my favorite when it switched stylistically cuz also the way they spoke was just it sounded like the editor had gone back in and fluffed it up and made it sound more academic or whatever. Like it was not a
Oh,
natural conversation.
yeah, and I'm sure that happened with articles where they would be edited to make them more fantastical, or it's basically like clickbait,
Mhm.
but in the
Yeah, yeah.
1930s.
And it's just another layer again of what's real and what's not real.
Which is, I guess, the whole theme of the circus, because the entire thing presents things that our knowledge up to this point have been mythological or fantasy. And there's a lot of debate even as people are looking at things. Like there's the family who's looking at that huge egg and the father saying, "Oh, it's made of what, plaster, it's not a real egg, this and that." And then it hatches.
Yeah, and the dad is just like, "Oh, well, time to go."
Yeah, because he was proven wrong, which is, I think, another point where he's kind of making fun of the townspeople a little bit, is a lot of them have a hard time accepting when they are wrong. Which was something I wrote in my notes, is a refusal to accept reality and a refusal to change.
Oh, yeah, that see, and the refusal to both of those, I think, is epitomized in the woman who goes to see the fortune teller.
Yes, that is exactly what I wrote down, the fortune telling scene. The fortune teller is Apollonius, who is actually a historical figure, and I'm just going to pull it up if I can spell it. Apollonius. Apparently there was more than one.
It's Apollonius of Tyana.
So I'm just looking up at his wiki right now. So he disputedly was born in 15 AD in the Roman Empire. And it says he was a
Ow.
Greek.
Sorry, the cat just came to swipe at me.
Um,
Continue.
he was a Greek philosopher and religious leader who spent his life traveling and teaching and was a famous miracle worker of his day. He was tried for allegedly having used magic as a means of conspiring against the emperor. After his subsequent death penalty, his followers believed that he underwent heavenly ascension. Modern scholars of antiquity agree that Apollonius existed historically.
Yeah, his character kind of reminded me of Ursus in The Man Who Laughs.
Without the magic.
Yeah.
But in the story, first of all, he's ancient, literally.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and he also he's driving one of the carriages in the parade, and people are like, "Man, what's that old guy? That's
Yeah, right.
that's not fun."
But his shtick is that his fortunes are like painfully honest.
Yeah,
He
he
doesn't-
says he's like cursed to tell the truth.
Yeah, so it's not like, when people go to get their fortune told and they want to hear about, the great love and fortune that they're going to have in the future. He tells this woman who's a widow that she will never find love again. She will never do anything of note with her life. And when she dies, it will be as if she had never existed at all.
Yeah, I saved one of the lines from that. The whole thing was just like brutal, like read her to filth. When you die, you will be buried and forgotten, and that is all. The morticians will enclose you in a worm-proof casket, thus sealing even unto eternity the clay of your uselessness.
Yeah, that is
Like,
some heavy stuff.
and for all the good or evil, creation or destruction that your living might have accomplished, you might just as well never have lived at all. I cannot see the purpose in such a life. I can see it only vulgar, shocking waste.
But meanwhile, the woman is sitting there asking him, "So, when am I going to get married again? When am I going to get married? Who's going to be my next husband?" Like, she's refusing to actually listen to anything he's saying.
Yeah. Is there
And it's
oil
just,
in New Mexico?
oh, yeah, she wanted to know if there was going to be oil on her property. Because, again, she wanted to know about love and riches. And there were none in her future. But she refuses to accept this reality other than the one she's already created inside her head.
Yeah. It's depressing. But
Yeah.
also, like, I didn't take that one personally because it's obviously criticism of certain types of people. But I felt
Mhm.
secure enough in my identity that, oh, well, I'm not like that.
Unless
mean, who
that's
knows?
the reality that you've
Yeah,
constructed.
I know, right?
I just want to make a note here. The entire plot of the story consists of townspeople going into various attractions of the circus and getting some kind of lesson, which is what I meant when I said there really is no plot. That's it. That's the whole story.
Yeah, they're like little vignettes.
But interestingly, this book was not split into any chapters. There were no breaks.
No, it does make it a little difficult to navigate when you're looking for quotes afterwards. But I honestly, you almost don't need it to be, because it's already segmented and it's so short. It would certainly make it easier to navigate, but
Let's see, what else did I have on my notes? Oh, the whole Russian or the bear thing, which people kept asking where the bear was. I wrote about how that is a reflection about isolated communities and how they basically only have stereotypical ideas of people from outside of their community.
yeah, that sounds right.
And then the subversion of expectations. So you have this full page, large advertisement in the paper telling you about all these really grand and wonderful things. And then the circus parade comes, and it's disappointing almost because of how just small and strange it is.
And not exciting or bombastic like they want the circus to be. I think that's another one of the sort of points or themes of the story, is that the circus comes to town and everyone has this preconceived notion of, oh, this is what a circus is. It's going to be bright and fantastical and whatever. The circus shows up and it's actually full of wonders, of actual real mythical creatures, an ancient Greek philosopher, like all this amazing stuff, and everyone's disappointed.
Because there was a lot of questioning what is reality, what is fantasy. People didn't really, at least at first, believe even some of these things were real. And even when they did, for certain things, accept the reality of what they were looking at, they were still disappointed because even this amazing, fantastical, mythological thing in front of them still did not meet the expectations that they had for it. So, like I mentioned before with the egg that hatched, and what came out of it was called a rock chick, which I guess is something that's in the Sinbad legends. And
Yeah, I
someone
had to look that up.
made a comment about how it wasn't as large as it was in the story. And then the scene with the werewolf. Dr. Lau has a werewolf that transforms back into a human. And there's these young men who are sitting there very excited to see this because they're expecting a young woman. But the werewolf is an old lady.
Yeah, and they get really upset.
They've just watched something that should not be real, and they're disappointed.
Yeah, and not only that, but it also extremely distressing. A creature going through something painful and, physically and audibly showing signs of being in pain. And their reaction is, oh man, she's not hot though. The people who go to see the werewolf are a gentleman named Larry, who is an army man. He's come back from, I guess it would be a tour, right? He's wandering around before he re-enlists and goes back overseas. And he's been stationed in China, and so they get to the circus. And his friends, his buddies that he's just made at the bar in the town, are astounded because him and Dr. Lau start speaking Mandarin to each other. And Larry speaks perfect fluent Mandarin. And they're like, oh my God. And so Larry's like, come on, Dr. Lau has got the hookup. We're going to go see the wolf. And so then when Larry's disappointed that it's not a hot chick, Dr. Lau is like, oh, what the hell, man? There's actual frustration from Dr. Lau. Like, why aren't you appreciating this amazing thing? Why did you come in here looking for a naked lady? Really one of the few times the doctor openly expresses that frustration with the townsfolk. Like, usually it's alluded to or it's implied, but in that instance, it's on the page of what the hell, man, which I found interesting.
Though Dr. Lau does have this little trick that he does when he doesn't really want to talk to people.
Yes.
It needs to be said that I had expected this to have, I guess, some more commentary about race than anything else we'd read so far, simply because it's about a Chinese man heading a circus, and it's not
Mhm.
written by a Chinese person in the 1930s. And I think, up to this point, with a couple exceptions from Nightmare Alley, have not actually read anything that had any like racial slurs or anything in it. But I think in this story, that is also, again, part of the point when they're talking about people in this really kind of stereotypical way and using language that's kind of derogatory.
Yes. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Dr. Lau, when he doesn't really want to talk to people or when he's being irritated or annoyed, will slip into this really broken English. Normally, he's completely fluent, eloquent, speaks perfectly about when he's presenting his attractions and he's explaining the creatures and the beings in the circus. But when he's asked questions or when the police show up, suddenly he doesn't speak perfect English anymore.
No, and it's almost like he's pandering. Like he's catering to their expectations of him so that they'll leave him alone or not
Yes.
question him further.
Yeah, so another example of that is too when he's asked, "Where is the bear?"
Yeah, there's no bear here. I do definitely think that while there are some of the townspeople refer to Dr. Lau using racial slurs. And I do think that's part of the criticism that Finney is making. Or at least that's how it read to me, that he's criticizing these people for using language like that and being narrow-minded.
Mm-hmm. Especially because when we meet a lot of the townspeople that are speaking that way, they're not sympathetic. We're not really meant to like, I think, most of these people. And even with going back to the scene with the sea serpent tells the proofreader a story about how he ate a little boy. And he refers to the little boy in a lot of very racially charged and derogatory ways. But the sea serpent, it also makes a point of telling us that the sea serpent is basically kind of evil. It was never actually, unlike the other creatures in the circus, it's not tamed. It wants to escape. It doesn't want to be there. And it takes a lot of joy out of the fact that it had eaten people. The proofreader just kind of finds this very fascinating. He's kind of a very neutral, which I guess could attest to his kind of professionalism, being an aspiring journalist at least. That he's very neutral on it when he's asking the sea serpent questions to follow up on the story.
That's kind of the duty of a journalist, a good journalist, is to remain unbiased, to get the information, to present the information without alienating your source. Writing a book about 1930s Arizona, I'm sure that's what they talked like.
Oh yeah, probably.
And people also get very defensive if you try to point it out or criticize them. Just like the people of Avalon, they don't want to be wrong. They think they're right, and they don't want to hear otherwise.
The stuff about race comes up, like very explicitly it comes up. And I think that is also part of what he's trying to say, where this town of obviously white people don't really see anyone outside of their community.
No, and
so,
I mean, he absolutely made the runner of the circus a Chinese person for a reason.
And there was also that whole scene with the peep show. Do you remember that?
That was extremely racially charged.
Yeah, and I was reading that and I was trying to be like, what actually is he trying to say here?
The only thing you could maybe say is that it's about sexualization of people of color, in particular black people, in particular black women. However, I don't think it was critical enough of it. It wasn't as clear as it is with the people using slurs against Dr. Lau. It's clear that the men looking into the peep show, in particular there's some drunk college boys who are very disrespectful that get thrown out. I don't know. That thing felt really icky.
Yeah, no, because the scene just plays out.
That one had the least subversion of expectations. It's almost like the scene they watched of, the scene is male African priests dancing around to appease a god. And, women come out and they start dancing around together. None of that was subverting expectations. I felt like it was playing exactly into the stereotypes of African countries.
Yeah.
Especially in the 1930s. There was never any sort of role reversal, which is what I was hoping for. Yeah, that was the only part that I was like, did you need to do that though?
That just about wraps up my notes. I think we've covered the subversion, reality versus fantasy, accepting things that are outside of our experience.
Yeah, and also I think there's something to be said for finding wonder in the world. Like, these people literally have wondrous things in front of them. They see wondrous things, and they're like, "No, gimme the dancing ponies."
They have these things that are outside of the scope of their own experience, outside the scope of the world, that what they've believed to be true. And they don't really learn anything from it,
No, they really don't.
which I believe is also part of the criticism.
Yeah, Dr. Lau comes, he puts on this whole huge show, and at the end, we even there's these, like, time-traveling windows where there's an entire civilization of people praying and sacrificing to an ancient god.
Okay,
And the
can we
circus
can we talk about like the main show at the end? Because there's two parts to it, and I
Yeah.
want to talk about the first part.
Okay.
Well, I should say there's three parts. So it starts off with everyone's kind of like in the big top, the main tent, and Dr. Lau's going to introduce the final grand finale show. And first he has all of his mythical beasts and animals come in, and they all start fighting, and he has to get Apollonius to get them out of there. Which was started by the sea serpent, I believe.
Yeah, it was like the sea serpent like bumped into the unicorn or something, and then the unicorn got mad, and then everyone else got mad.
So then Apollonius does basically a grand magic show where he summons a witch's Sabbath.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Then the witches summon Satan.
Yeah.
But like for real, like literal Satan, because Apollonius at some point he can't get the like Satan to go away to end the show. He has to like get out a crucifix. Like banish Satan.
Yeah, he like banishes everything else, and then Satan's like, "No, you can't get rid of me. I'm Satan." And then he's like, "No, guess I gotta get the big guy out."
It's just so bonkers.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then he comes back. Satan like pokes his head in again after that. He's like, "Ah, you thought I was gone. Fooled you," but then he is gone for real after that. I wonder if that is done to be a contrast to Yodel, the ancient god we see after that, because Satan, it's this like big scandalous thing, and it's all this pomp and circumstance, and the animals are all dancing, and there's this hellish, fiendish music, and all this crazy stuff is happening. And then Satan's like, "Aha, you can't get rid of me," but then he is gotten rid of. And then the next scene with the ancient god Yodel being the people who worship him, they haven't had rain, they have no food, they're starving, their crops are all dead. They're like, "We got to do something. We got to appeal to Yodel to save us," and they're trying to figure out how to do it. And there's way less sort of mystical elements than the Satan scene, but there's a more tangible outcome.
This show was on the advert. They did advertise that there would be a ritual with the sacrifice of a virgin at the very end.
Yeah, it's true. The advertisement literally was factual.
And you know what? No one questioned that part.
Nobody brought it up. Honestly, aside from the very beginning, because that's the very first couple of pages, is the proofreader going through the ad. But after that, nobody really mentions it.
Until the end, when we see it.
Yeah, and then everyone just sort of wanders away.
And then that's the end of the show, and everyone goes home.
Yeah, it was something.
This whole book was really kind of just like a fever dream.
It was, and honestly, the end show definitely was a culmination. Like, for such a short little novella, it really did feel like it had a nice crescendo.
You had to do something after literal Satan.
Yeah, they delivered.
Did you read the like index at the end?
Yes, I did.
At the end of this book, there is a list. It goes the male characters, the female characters, the animals, and then like miscellaneous or something.
Yeah, it's called the catalog, and the subtitle is an explanation of the obvious, which must be read to be appreciated.
Yeah, and it had a little bit of like extra information about some of the characters. And then at the very end of that, there was a list of questions. And it was basically a list of, did you notice these plot holes?
Yeah, that was so funny.
And yes, you did have to read it to appreciate it. I didn't like sit down and read the book all at once. Sometimes when you're reading things over the course of a few days, you forget a few of like the fine details from the beginning of the story. But then you read the questions at the end pointing out all the different plot holes and inconsistencies, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that now, but I didn't really think about it when I was reading the story. Yeah, so that was also part of the book. It's not like, when they do those book club questions at the end of books. This was part of what the author was trying to say to us. Further goes to show this is not a text that you should take too seriously.
No, and it's just cheeky. Cheeky is the only way to describe it. It was nice to read, especially after some of the circus-specific stories we've read, like Geek Love springs to mind. Not a good time. Good books, well written, but in terms of fun, meh.
Yeah, that's true.
Some of the things we've read have been very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And so this, I think I said this at the beginning, this was very satisfying to me because it accomplished to me what a circus is, or I guess the idea of a circus I have in my mind of is weird, wacky, made me think about things. I read about some stuff I hadn't thought about before. I had a good time.
There were still a lot from this book that we didn't even mention, like the mermaid and the satyr, which was really funny to me after having just read The Great God Pan.
Yeah, the funniest thing about the satyr to me was because there is a question at the end of the book. So essentially a woman goes to see the satyr and they get into a compromising position, shall we say. And one of the questions at the end of the book is why didn't Dr. Lau notice anything unusual when he found Miss Agnes Birdsong and the satyr in such a compromising posture? But that part to me, specifically when the doctor came into the tent, the circus tent, that felt like a fourth wall break. Like he came into the tent and started just expositioning.
Yeah, he's explaining it to us, the
Yeah,
reader.
because there was nobody else in there. It was the woman and the satyr, and then he bursts in and explains to us what just went on. Again, I love a good fourth wall break.
So I guess with that being said, final thoughts about the theme, the year's theme, circus adventure we've gone on before this circus train packs up and heads on out.
I guess I should say, I never realized both how many circus stories there are and also how hard they are to find. We had to do some hunting.
Yeah, so the Circus of Dr. Lau, I've seen someone describe it as an obscure classic, which was a really interesting way to put it. The Man Who Laughs, we had to hunt down because, for as famous as Victor Hugo is, that novel is not one of his popular ones.
Yeah, that one I think we talked about that in the episode, but it was literally a copy from the late 1800s from the library.
And let's see. Geek Love, I've seen it mentioned like on Instagram posts about books about circuses and carnivals, especially if they've got like a horror themed post, because there's a lot of modern horror set in circuses and carnivals and especially amusement parks.
Oh, yeah.
So I have seen some compilation posts like here's some books, that fit under this, setting or topic. The only time I've seen Geek Love come up was the caption had said, before you guys all say I didn't include Geek Love, it's because I didn't like it.
I mean, fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, that one was I think that was one of the harder ones to read for content, not for like writing style.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
None of these were particularly dense or difficult. Not even Hugo.
No, that's true. I mean, Hugo was verbose, but not like you said, it wasn't really dense. It was just a lot of words.
Something Wicked This Way Comes. I mean, I think that book is deceptive because it's kind of written, it's written about children, and it's not like the language is difficult, but the way that he writes is like you're watching everything through a haze. And then Nights at the Circus was also one that was, for the content, kind of difficult.
Yeah, you could say that. Still enjoyable, though. I mean, Geek Love, I would say it's worth a read if you look through the trigger warnings and stuff. But everything we read, I think, was enjoyable.
I have a distinction between books that I think are good because they're enjoyable and you actually like reading it, and things that are good because like thematically they're important and they make you think about things. This, I think, was both, because it does make you really evaluate what the author is saying, especially in terms of how these people are relating to the world around them and the people around them and the things they're presented with in Dr. Lau's Circus. But at the same time, it's also very funny.
Yeah, and I think it's very effective satire because it's also, I would say it's kind of a low bar for entry on this one. you don't need to be an English major to pick up what he's putting down. And listen, as an English major, I love digging through the text and trying to figure out what all that stuff is, but not everyone's going to do that. And at a certain point, when does the message get lost? So this one is accessible, and I think the criticisms of society are still valid to this day, which is kind of a shame it's not more popular then, I guess.
I'm trying to think of how this even got on the list and where I heard of it, and I really don't even remember, to be honest.
This one definitely came from you. I found a bunch of I found a lot of the short stories we read this year.
Yes, I picked all the novels. We originally started making the list. I only had 2 on the list, and I think I had just gone into a search engine and looked up classic gothic, circus, carnival, and there's a lot of websites that are just lists of things. As I was looking for contemporary books, I did another similar search, and then The Man Who Laughs was on a website that was classic novels that take place in carnivals or something to that effect. I don't remember where I found about Geek Love or this one. They just kind of, I guess, appeared to me from the depths of the internet.
Well, I think Geek Love is pretty well known.
Yeah, but it didn't.
That's probably how it came up.
It didn't come up on my initial searches. It definitely came up when I was actually putting together the schedule for the podcast, but I don't remember exactly where I saw it.
I guess all that matters is we read it. We found it.
Are we better for it?
I don't know. We're not worse for it at the very least.
Yeah, I think we've come out of the circus here unscathed. And now, the people of Apollon, Arizona, we're going to go home and not pretend like none of that ever happened, like the people of Apollon, Arizona, but we will have grown and become wiser.
I was just about to say, I have faith in us. I think we're capable of learning and growing and expanding our worldview.
Yeah, which I guess is kind of the whole point of even doing this podcast, because we talk about, the whole point of the channel is to talk about obscure, weird things, and of course it always kind of skews toward the darker side of content, because that's just what we like as people.
Yeah, that's how we do.
But the whole point of this is to kind of talk about stuff. I don't know where I was going with that. It's a little bit of a revival, right? We're talking about stuff that maybe other people don't, and we just try to see what we can get out of it. And hopefully you listening also get something out of it and can go home wiser, better, faster,
stronger. Oh, Lord.
Of course, we do also encourage everyone to also read these books and stories as well and see what your take on it is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the other half of making the podcast in this channel, right? Is the opportunity to have a discussion in a community. It's fun just you and me talking about this stuff, but the opportunity to widen that circle and bring other people into it.
Yeah, so I guess here will be my question for this week. Do you think it would be beneficial to pre-post a list of episode topics so that you listening can also read before the episode airs?
That's a good idea.
So then you can see if you agree with us or not, or maybe if you notice something that we didn't necessarily pick up on ourselves, or that we didn't discuss, things that you thought were important or interesting or just neat about whatever the story is. And then you can let us know in the comments, and we could all have a good conversation about what we're reading.
Yeah, it's almost like a book club.
Sort of, yeah. Without the guided questions.
Just you and me spitballing, taking notes sometimes.
I usually take notes in my invisible notebook.
Yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I took a lot of notes for Emily Dickinson.
It's less invisible now that I actually have silver pens.
Oh, fancy.
On the subject of invisible notebooks.
Ooh, segue.
Yeah, I should say, it wasn't the end of October. At the beginning of this month, so it was November 1st, on our Instagram, and I think it also ended up on our TikTok, and it's definitely on the Tumblr. I posted a little cipher message.
No, exciting.
Yeah, if you see where this is going, if you are able to solve it, you will definitely know where this is going. But I'll leave it at that.
It's intriguing. So make sure to follow us on Instagram if you're not already.
It's probably going to be a little slower on there just as the year wraps up. There's some other projects that I want to do, and making Instagram posts is not only very time consuming, but since we're kind of getting to the end of this theme, I think I've exhausted most of the things that I would want to post about, since I do want to keep it a little more whimsical and fun on there and not necessarily get into, the really dark stuff about circuses. Because I was thinking for a long time about doing a post about like freak shows and about the exploitation and stuff that went on, but then I was like, this requires more discussion and evaluation than an Instagram post.
Yeah, that's a much wider conversation with a lot of underlying factors.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't do anything about that, but I guess if you do want to learn about that, there are many, many, many resources available on the topic. I will be doing a kind of expanded, I think, video version of my killer clown post, because that's less human exploitation and more true crime meets gothic literature meets horror movies.
Yeah, it's a little more fun.
Yeah. It's mostly fictional. It's not entirely fictional, but it is mostly fictional. So that's something but anyhow, what I was getting at is that I've mostly, I think, exhausted the topics that I would want to do. So the end of the year is kind of just going to be wrapping up, I guess, packing up the circus train so it can head on out, and then preparing for next year.
Heck yeah.
Also, I'm really burnt out on circuses, so
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that the topic has been exhausted. It's not quite as evergreen as something like vampires.
Listen, I've managed to still put vampires into it.
It's true.
So I'm working, as part of the wrap-up, I'm working on a special zine issue of the Haunted Hearts Society zine Night Lore. It'll be a special issue, and I think it's going to be offline, unless there's a demand for PDF copies. Expanding a little bit on like the informational posts that I've had all year long. It's going to have some overview of the books we talked about in the pod. It'll have my reviews of the contemporary books that I've read. I'm currently reading the last one. I'm a little more than halfway through it.
How's that going?
It's going.
Good start.
I have a section about the silent films that, first of all, exist and also had kind of a carnival or circus theme to them. So just like a little bit of a summary of the plot and then whatever fun facts that we found out.
Mm-hmm.
And I've managed in this section in particular, I've managed to bring up Bela Lugosi twice. And you know what goes hand in hand with Bela Lugosi? The vampires are still, they're ever present.
You know what? I'm not upset about that.
I think that'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I feel good about that.
We don't have our outro script still.
Oh, that's true. All right, well, leave us a comment down below. Don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel for more of this and other strange, obscure, and bygone topics and videos. Follow us on Instagram, Tumblr, TikTok, all the places. We'll see you next time for a
we're on
short story.
Substack now, too.
Oh, right, the Substack. I wasn't sure if that was public or not.
I believe it is. I think it just has pod episodes on it right now. But my understanding of Substack, it's going to be like a one-stop shop for all the content. So you can get like the writing, the videos, the pods, whatever else I guess can go on there, photo kind of things.
Yeah.
Instead of having to follow links to here and there and everywhere, it'll just be all in one place. Also, my understanding is that it emails followers or subscribers every time there's an update, so you are not having to fight through the algorithm if you want to see our posts, because the algorithm will only show you our posts if you are consistently interacting with the content.
Yeah,
Something to keep in mind.
I'm subscribed to a couple Substack people, and you do get an email. It is nice.
So I've had some people say that they haven't seen our posts because the algorithm literally just doesn't show it to them. Okay, so those are all the places that we're at now.
Yep, so follow us, leave a comment Did you read the book? You can read it pretty easily. Check your library, or it is on the Internet Archive, theoretically. If they update the copy that broke it while I was in the middle of reading it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's been a few reprints of it, I guess, since the 70s.
Yeah, so definitely recommend this one. Stay tuned for what we read next time.
Oh yeah, there's 2 more episodes left for the year. So 2 more
Yes.
episodes in December. They won't be about circuses, they'll be about other things.
Yes. Just some general gothic goodness to close out the year. All right. Well, I guess we'll talk to you later, Internet. Stay
All right.
strange.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Goodbye.